share a little bit more? Continue what you were saying about becoming an advocate. It was the right move for you. It allowed for you to be more effective. It allowed for you to have better coverage in the way that you wanted to intensify that coverage for your clients. Explain that.
So there's a lot of people in the elder industry who do not have good intentions.
Right.
And in the 28 years I've been doing this, all told,
Right.
I've seen a lot of the aftermath of what happens when these people get hold of an elder who's vulnerable, who's desperate, who needs help. And one of the things that I tell people, even before I became a patient advocate, was look for what this person's training is. What time have they put into learning their craft? What things do they put in place to protect you?
Right.
And I think that going through the process of becoming a board certified patient advocate told people that I'm somebody that takes this seriously, takes helping them seriously, and takes protecting them seriously.
Right.
I'm not 21 anymore. Going back to school for a year was a little bit challenging. You become a different learner. But
Hang on. Yes.
One of my heroes is Dr. Maya Angelou.
Yeah, mine too.
And anyway, she said, and I hope I quote her exactly, people may not remember exactly what you did or what you said,
I remember how you make,
but they'll remember how you made them feel. So yes, I can tell people I've done all of this education, I've got all this experience, I've got insurance, I'm bonded, I'm licensed, but what I do is I try to create an opportunity in the beginning of the relationship where I am working for them unpaid. So I'm trusting them in the beginning that I'll do this work and they'll pay me for it later. And they're having an opportunity then to learn how to trust me and that I am trustworthy. So I try to create that vulnerability as much as I can in equal measure. And I'm hoping that that honors what Dr. Maya Angelou meant when she said, they'll trust how you made them feel. I want them to feel that I understand vulnerability. I understand what it means to have to trust somebody quickly. And I understand what it means to feel helpless sometimes.
Yeah. I really what's the right word? I regard that so much because even in ministry, because that's what you're doing is ministry. But even in other forms of ministry, we've kind of overshadowed the trust in the relationship for look, I'm not saying that people don't need to be paid. That's not at all what I'm saying. But we've overshadowed the necessity of trust in order for the relationship to really bear the fruit that it's supposed to bear. And so when I hear you talking about how you build the relationship with your clients, it's built on this trust. And there's nothing more significant than when an elder or a person is moving into a new season in their life that is uncertain, or whether a family member is walking that out, what that season would look like, or and let alone when you're in the middle of a crisis trying to do it, it's even more challenging. And so it really feels to me like what you're doing is ministry in another form. You're doing ministry.
Well, part of part of me experiencing success in what I'm doing for people is that the people actually do what I tell them to.
Yeah.
And, the last thing I want to do is be told what to do.
Right.
I don't think a lot of us cherish that idea.
No, we don't.
And so if you spend the time building the relationship, when the rubber hits the road, then you're going to have that success because you're going to be able to help people because they trust you.
Right.
I think now might be a good time for me to talk about why persons living with dementia are such my passion.
Yeah. I want to know about that just before you, I really want everyone to know about that. So don't lose that.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. First, tell us about that. Tell us about that first.
So again, I know this sounds like a broken record, Deborah, and tell me when I've said it too many times. I never understood why my clients who had and have dementia had such a special place in my heart. All of my clients are in my heart. The minute someone hires me, I commit them and everything we're going to do together to God. And I trust him implicitly to keep me on the straight and narrow. But folks living with dementia, just a special place in my heart. Again, I think it goes back to vulnerability.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, so I became a facilitator for support groups. I did all the walks, blah, 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 blah. Became very educated on resources for those persons.
Right.
And in 2014, I moved up to Northwest Florida. I'm now in Central Florida.
Okay.
But I had moved up to Northwest Florida, and I encountered a man living with dementia who was a public speaker, an advocate. And so in 2015, everybody said, Maureen, you got to go see this guy. You got to go hear him. And so in 2015, I learned that he was coming to the town where I lived. And so I signed up to go hear him speak. And this man was incredible. He was living with Alzheimer's, and he had a way of putting things that taught us perspective, that taught us that people living with dementia are people. And sometimes they're superhuman people, but that a lot of the challenges people living with dementia have come from us that don't have it, and how we perceive them and how we treat them. And so after hearing him speak, I walked up to him and introduced myself and told him what I do for a living and asked him if he'd be interested in us partnering where he could be a consultant to talk to my folks who are living with dementia or are supporting someone with dementia. And, he kind of said yes and blew me off and went and talked to other people. I want to tell you that over the course of the next 3.5 years, I interacted with this guy 29 times and he never remembered me. We spoke on same stages together. We sat on panels together. I was at walks where he spoke. And every time I would walk up to him and I would introduce myself, and nothing. Then we were at the Pioneer Network meeting conference in Louisville, Kentucky in 2019.
Right.
And as it turned out, some mutual friends of ours had invited both of us to come to dinner together with all of them. And so he's sitting next to me, and he's talking about his new business cards.
Okay.
Frankly, I think he was bragging a little, but anyway, I said, well, I'd like to have one of your new business cards. And he reaches in his pocket, and he's not looking at me, Deborah. He's still talking to everybody else, okay? But he reaches in his pocket and without even the side eye, hands me his room key. And I said, oh, I don't care if you've got Alzheimer's or what. You are not getting away with that. That is not going to happen. Well, all of a sudden, bam, all the attention was on Maureen.
Yes.
And he spit out, I didn't mean to give you the room key. I meant to give you I said, oh, right.
Yeah, right. Sure you did. I know those tricks and games.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Well, it broke the ice. This was the 30th time we'd been together. And we spent, after dinner, we walked back and we talked and we spent time at the conference together. And he said, I'd really like to talk to you more when we get back. Well, by this time, I had moved back to Central Florida because my granddaughter had been born. And so he said, can you put your cell phone number in my phone? So I put Maureen Rulison, really hot babe, and put my cell phone number.
That's funny.
And when he got back to Pensacola, he texted me and he said you still come up to Northwest Florida occasionally. Next time you come up, I'd like to take you out to dinner. And so the next time I was up there, we had made arrangements and we went out to dinner. And that's how Brian LeBlanc and I became Mr. and Mrs.
I know a little bit of that story, some of that story, and I cannot wait for the audience to see the two of you together. But I also think what a powerful message about timing. What do you think? What do you think it was that I mean, timing is so divine when you think about it. But your life was already so ordered by the Lord and your pathway. Brian may not always think in these terms, but on the surface. But the truth of the matter is, even that was ordained and ordered. And all of your interest with dementia and, feeling this inward passion and movement in that direction. And then to end up, with Brian. And I know that story and that description of Brian speaking and all of that. And so, but I think it is such also an incredible and powerful testimony of God's timing.
And I will tell you that something in me changed that night in Louisville, Kentucky.
That was actually going to be what I was going to talk to you about next. So you see, God is already working. Okay, so yes, keep going.
It wasn't conscious, I'm going to tell you, and it actually took Brian and I about 6 months of looking in retrospect to realize this.
Yeah.
What happened that night in the restaurant when he pulled his room key out instead of the business card was that I treated Brian like a man. I didn't treat him like a man with dementia.
Yeah.
I didn't say, oh, you've got dementia. I understand you made this mistake. Oh, it's okay. No, I did exactly what I would have done if a man who didn't have dementia had done that.
Right.
And bam, he responded and reacted to that.
Yeah.
And I've learned, not only with Brian, but with a lot of my other folks who are walking this journey, that if you attach a very strong emotion to a memory for them, it sticks with them better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe that the very strong emotion that Brian felt that night was, here is a woman who isn't looking at me pitifully, who isn't looking at me like, oh, this guy's not a whole man. Well, honestly, Deborah, I never looked at him like he wasn't a whole man, but my actions obviously communicated a different message.
Yeah, I would have conversations with Brian. He likely had not told you, but we would have this kind of a joke. And, we would be talking and I would say, do you remember when he's like, no, I don't remember. I have Alzheimer's. And then, and then I would laugh and I would say, don't give me the Alzheimer's excuses. But it was, to your point, I'm sharing that because we didn't talk to each other like Alzheimer's was sitting in the middle of our friendship. Like, I would be like, I don't want to hear the Alzheimer's excuses. You do remember. And he would remember, like, you know what I'm saying? But it was just this idea. He was Brian. He is Brian.
He's always Brian.
I know. But I think there's a lesson in that, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. I have, before I met Brian even, I had formulated the question in my mind, do persons living with dementia stop talking because of dementia or because we stop talking to them? And we do stop talking to them. It's the whole thing I was talking about where staff in like memory cares will carry on conversations around and over the people without including them in it. They don't look for ways that these people can succeed, participate, be part of. And it's very difficult, Deborah. I'm not saying this is an easy thing. You know
Oh,
as
no,
well as anybody.
I know.
You know as well as anybody. And uh, I will tell you that the real dichotomy of my whole life is that before I got with Brian, I thought I knew all that, and I was a bag of chips. I know how to do this, and I know how to do this, and I can do this better than anybody else. Oh, then I became a 24/7 care partner. I am the worst sometimes.
Yeah.
And I make mistakes all the time. I've I've learned forgiveness of not only myself, but asking Brian for forgiveness. That's got to be my number one thing I do all day long. And second is to realize that I'm doing my best as a care partner.
Yeah. To be forgiving of yourself and to, I always say to caregivers and myself, honestly, every day is we are God. Christ never asked us to be him
No.
in this journey. He never asked that of us. And so we reach a limit. There are limits. And within the space of those limits, acknowledging and being okay with the reality that we are really a vessel in the process, and we're not going to be able to fix everything. We're not going to be able to change everything. We're not going to be able to be ahead on everything. That there are parts of this process that are truly out of our hands. And what happens to us, what happens as caregivers, is because the responsibility is so great, and because our love and connection to the person is so strong, that we really need the Lord. We really need him at the center in order to continue to help us navigate and not switch the role between us and him.
Yes. Amen to that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're describing that so beautifully in your own experience. But I don't know how anyone does it without God in their life. I don't.
I don't either.
I really don't. Because in our own humanity, it is overwhelming in and of itself, and it's not like linear. It's circular. It's erratic. It's progressive, but then regressive. It's all of these things happening at one time, and all of these things affects the caregiver. In my case, my mother is 91. Even me more than my mom. Her emotions are not as bothered as mine. She's always okay, right? And she's being careful, and she's always okay in this state. Even when she's not okay, she's always okay. She broke her foot, and the doctor's saying, "Does your foot hurt?" And she's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." But I'm not fine. you know? And so this is what I want to hear from you. How has two parts? How has this role of patient advocate and the journey towards it changed you? And how has becoming a caregiver, loving Brian as a caregiver, separate from being a patient advocate in the role, how has that changed you?
Wow. Becoming a patient advocate changed me at the right time in my life, um, because I recognized that we tend, those of us that are in the business, earning a living, serving elders, tend to be people who are fixers. We go to great lengths to learn what the right answers are for people, we think. But I'm a fixer. I'm a huge fixer. And whether it comes to my clients or whether it's Brian, what becoming a patient advocate taught me was to set goals with the people first. So I no longer walk in like Superwoman with my cape and big red boots on and say, da 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 da, I'm here to solve all of your problems. I walk in with a pen and paper and I say, can we sit down and talk about what the top 3 goals you would want me to help you with are?
Yeah. What do they want?
And Deborah, I'm going to tell, I can't say it's 100%, but I'm going to say it's like 98.5% of the time, the things I had in my mind as what this person needed are not the 3 things that they want me to start with. And so again, same with Brian. I was, I have that wonderful combination. God made me. I keep remembering this. So
Yeah.
not only am I a fixer, but I have OCD.
Yeah.
CDO, because you got to have it in alphabetical order.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So becoming a patient advocate and becoming a care partner to Brian have taught me that people are not broken. Situations may be broken. Tools may be broken. I'm not there to fix the person. I'm there to help and work beside the person to fix whatever is going on in their life that's not currently working. But I will never, ever know what's not working until I be quiet and I listen to what they tell me.
So would you say you become a more active listener?
A more humble, active listener. And, when I have clients who no longer are able to speak, I, of course, have to go to the next person closest to them to ask questions. But you can learn a lot about a person with their eyes, with their body language, with what they are and are not doing. And so I have to be very quiet and listen and watch. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, it's definitely, it teaches you, it teaches you to kind of step outside of yourself. I was just saying to Brian, I've said to many others that caregiving is a mirror. It's not a window. People think that the work they do, that's the difference between I'm going to say, use my language, a divine calling and someone's ambition to pursue something. One is born out of God placing it inside of you. And therefore you become subject to what he's put inside of you and his instruction. Whereas ambition is what I'm putting, what I have inside of me, and how do I move? How do I, for lack of a better word, what I am concocting and deciding on my own, and how do I navigate that out of my own self? It's 2 completely different things. And so I'm saying that to say, to your point, when we think about a calling, when we think about a vision, we're being propelled from something other than ourselves. And that causes you to process and look at people and the situations very differently than when you're being compelled from yourself.
True. And the other thing is, Deborah, is yes, it's always nice to hear from people that what you did helped them or made them feel better. But I realized how much my ego was involved through this process. I have, I just can't tell you how blessed I am to have had the people that I have hired me. They've taught me so much. But I realized that my motivation
There it is.
was to hear them say, "Wow, Maureen, you did a great job. Thank you so much. Oh, we don't know what we would have done without you." To them not having to say anything, but me being able to see the results of what our partnership, my clients and my partnership produced. And it was a hard pill to swallow when I realized how much my ego was involved in what I was doing.
Oh,
And
I get that. I mean, I think that the same thing applies when you think about ministry, because other types of ministry, even pastoring, that the the motivation means a lot. The intention means a lot, and we get the intention, and the motivation gets overshadowed by all the fame and the um, I'm going to say the output, but what I mean is the look of it all. And sometimes when you can see the outward appearance so strong and is so powerful, it's hard for somebody to that is experiencing it. Because if what you experience is the bright, shiny lights and the fame and all of that stuff, then sometimes it can become challenging for the person to deconstruct what they see so that they can get at what's underneath it. And it's what's underneath it that really reveals the quality of it. And so when I think about what you were describing about what you do for your clients in terms of how they look at a facility or whatever it is, that, you know, part of it is just human nature. But what I'm saying is, because you are coming from this internal place, and you are wired in such a way potentially that your whole infrastructure, your whole value is in having the person be able to deconstruct the quality of what it is they're looking at so that they can get to what they really need, right? And that they can receive what is really, get what they need, but receive what in essence will be fulfilling in the experience or meet the need in the experience. We have gotten so far away from that, Miss Maureen,
yes, ma'am.
and not just one area, in just about every area.
The motto of my company is creating a life worth living for everyone.
Yeah.
And whether that's the person who requires support or the person who's providing the support, whether that person providing support is a family member or a professional care partner, everyone deserves to live a life that to them is worth living.
Yeah.
And COVID made it so obvious to me, a layer of that, what I just said, that I had never seen before, was these elders being locked in their rooms to keep them safe. Hello, when did we all decide that people, once they needed assisted living or needed support of some type, they no longer had the right to decide their own risk management and risk tolerance? We did more harm than good, I have a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for us, we didn't have control over this, but the pandemic has affected caregivers and folks like yourself that do the work you do, people that on the receiving end of receiving the benefit or the value of the work you do. But for many people as caregivers, and for be it and particularly informal caregivers, the pandemic affected um, may not have directly affected you in some ways, but the indirect effect or impact of being on lockdown has affected our life and has also affected my mother's cognition. And it's affected it because there are things that we did out in the world. By me taking her to dinner, I took my mom to a different restaurant every single Saturday. I mean, and people would think, oh, that's so nice. They every now and again I share a picture about it. Um, but I wasn't doing that just for no reason. I was doing it because it was social connection, and it was keeping her engaged. And we were also enjoying and living our life. And I had to meet her where she was. And me being able to do that was, what can I do that is exciting and different, that has to stretch her, but then we get to socialize with one another. She gets to, all of that stuff. All of,
The first prescription a doctor should write when they diagnose someone with a dementia-related illness is social interaction.
yeah, 100.
And that's actually why Brian and I started We Are Dementia Strong, was because Brian and I had been out all over the United States and Canada speaking in person. And COVID came along, and all of a sudden, bam, the
Yeah,
iron curtain shut down. And I saw within 2 months what was happening to Brian's cognition.
yeah,
He was losing. And I knew I couldn't take him out and put him at risk. No one was going to come to a big place
yeah,
to hear him, but
yeah,
we could put him in a place where he could still advocate, still educate, still interact with people. And so that's why we started We Are Dementia Strong.
yeah, yeah. I think we're in a world now where, I mean, obviously the virus is real, but we're in a world now where we have to be creative and find ways to, and look, I don't, I want you to tell me how you feel about this, but I think that we also don't really understand the difference between communication and connection. And when it comes to Alzheimer's or dementia, or even our elderly population, or anyone, I caregivers that are taking care of children with autism, whatever it might be, that it's a difference to communicate versus connect. And so one of the themes I'm also hearing is how you're really trying to connect with people to help them in the way that you need to, as opposed to, because communication can be one-sided. I'm listening to them, I hear what they need, they're listening to me, they hear what I do, but we have no connection between us in that process. And connection means that I not only hear you and receive it, but now I can consume it. And now I'm connecting with you in the process. And I think that in my own experience, it is connection that has sustained my mother all this time. I came home at the right time, but it is the connection um, that has done that.
So I don't know if you ever watched the movie Avatar,
No,
but
I haven't.
in this movie, these people who live on this planet have um, a phrase that they say that means "I see you," and
Uh,
when they define what they mean, "I see you" in this movie, it's not that they physically see the person standing there, but that they see what this person is and what's important to them and what's meaningful to them. It's a soul connection.
yes.
And I I tell you, it's just so rewarding. I wish that I was a multimillionaire for one reason and one reason only. One is, well, I could work without having to get paid. And I try my best, Deborah, to help those who don't have the money to hire someone like me. They won't necessarily have me walking beside them the whole way, but I can get them connected with as much as possible. I walked into a woman's home last, I want to say it was February. Please know that I may be wrong about the month.
Yeah.
But I know we're not in Canada here, but it can get cold here in Florida. And I walked into this lady's home, and she had huge holes in she was in a mobile home or manufactured home, huge holes in her floors. And the wind was just coming up through them. And what she wanted help with, she she had called me and told me she wanted Medicaid. She wanted somebody to come out and see how she was living. So I stayed there with her. I called Adult Protective Services, and then I called the sheriff's office. And I stayed there with her until somebody came out that I knew was going to help her. And they did. They took her someplace. They got her like a 2-week respite stay, and then they got people to come in
And
and fix what had happened is her water heater had fallen through the floor. So she didn't have hot water.
she was
And
living alone.
she was living alone, and she was able to call me. To this day, I don't know how she got my name and telephone number,
God,
but you know, you can't walk away from somebody like that.
no.
And I have gone back to visit her, and she is doing much, much better. And I later found out, sadly, her son lived right next door to her and never came over.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can't. I have such a hard time with that. I I'll say this and then you can share. And I think that what I would like to do, Miss Maureen, is I would love it for us to continue having another this is like how it's always gone, but one of the reasons why I just would love to see us talk again, apart from the fact that you and Brian are going to talk with us, but because I want people to really know more of the intricacies of um, how what you do can help them, or even people they know, right? Um, because we have to be able to fill the space with also knowledge and information, because um, people are hurting, and people, quite frankly, in large part are hurting because they don't know about the resources that are available to them.
true.
And that includes whether it's ministry, whether it's resource and support. And then when you start talking about dementia support and resource, it is all over the place. And the communities might be online, but they're not always resourceful and functional and effective. And so I would love for us to be able to continue a conversation about that, because we want to be able, part of soul health is being able to connect for people the dots so that they can get the tangible help they need. So then their soul can be uplifted. It's like the Bible talks about, you give someone that's hungry, you can read a scripture, but it'd be more helpful if you give them food first. Right. And so we
Yeah.
want to be able to give food to people as well through the services that you provide. But I was going to say, one of the things that um, I think I have like I've always been a person that's been connected to nature and all of these things. But being on this journey has really changed how I see the world, right? It's changed even how I navigate through it. And so the theme from Danny to myself is how we have been changed on the inside by this care we give on the outside, and how it's really the process, though painful at times, has been as much, if not more, transformative for us than it was for the person we were caring for. And that how could God use this thing that's so messy and awful in order to change me and help me become the person I'm supposed to be? And so what would you say to that?
I would say to you that about a year into being Brian's care partner, I stepped back one day because I was about to lose my temper. And I stepped back, and I learned that tool from when I was a single mom. Don't discipline your children when you're angry. So I used to tell them, Mommy's going to put herself on timeout for a few minutes, and we'll be back to talk about this later.
Yeah.
And so I recognized the rage and the anger building inside of me with the situation with Brian and I. And I spent probably 10 minutes just like muttering under my breath, dang dementia. Brian never does what I tell him to do, blah, 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 blah. And after I spit all of that out and got it all out of it, I started to look back at what had caused the problem. And what it was that Brian had taken, everywhere he went, he'd created a nest around him I mean, he had shoes, he had cups, he had everything he could survive for 10 days,
Yeah.
wherever it was in the house.
Yeah.
And I've already admitted to being OCD.
Yeah.
And I said, holy cow, the problem is not Brian. The problem is me. And I could then look back and see how every time we had been in a really bad place, it was me trying to make him conform to what I thought was right that caused the problem. So I have been changed tremendously by learning not to insert my priorities and my will into someone else's life.
I thank you so much for sharing that. I think that where we miss the transformation in our life is not really being in a place of reflection or willingness to go through tough things. So we're raising a generation of people, young humans that may be incapacitated to go through tough things. And it's the tough things that allow us and our character to be changed and to be transformed, so that when we meet ourselves in this certain place, we have this moment, this intersection where God is supernaturally bringing us into another realm, another alignment of who we are supposed to be, and we forfeit it out of fear of the messiness, out of fear of saying yes to something hard, or saying yes to something we don't have control over. And I think that you are such an incredible, you're such an incredible example is not the a manifestation, example is not the right word, but of a person that has said yes to something that so many people would just be like, no way, Jose, no way. And I'm not necessarily just talking about being with Brian, but I'm talking about even the work that you're doing and the reflection that's taken place, because I think the reflection is what makes the work that we're doing even better. I mean, don't you think that?
It makes us more capable to step in beside someone and absorb what their priorities are, absorb what their needs are. Patient. I am still not a patient person, and I'm not praying for patience either, God. Not praying for it.
No, I'm not. Yes.
But when Brian and I got together, people said some very harsh and rude things to us, more to me than to him. But the one that hurt the most was when someone said to me, well, I guess you know better than anybody what you get yourself into, and Brian couldn't have picked anybody better to take care of him. Brian didn't pick me to take care of him, and I didn't pick him because I wanted to take care of him. I picked him because I love everything about Brian. I don't always appreciate him at the right times, but I do love so much about Brian. And I made the mistake in the beginning of saying out loud, because Deborah, when I do something wrong, I am so bold about it.
Yeah.
I tell everybody.
Yeah.
I kept saying, I don't love Brian because he has dementia. And I don't. But I would then add, I love Brian because he's a man and I love the man he is. And dementia has this need to be noticed. It's like children, they'll get positive or they'll get negative attention, but they'll get attention.
Yeah. One way or
another. And dementia is the same way. So dementia decided to teach me that it was a part of Brian that I had to love. Yeah. I couldn't say I didn't love Brian because he had dementia. It was a part of Brian that I had to love. And every one of my clients and their care partners and families that I serve, I have learned to love them for who they are and not try to change them.
Well, I don't know what more I can add to that. I think that there are so many lessons we have to learn also about what real love is. I think, quite frankly, you and I could have a conversation about that. For
I
the
would love to have that.
I really do. I think you may very well be, be feeling like you're the right person to have that conversation for whatever reason. But I say that because um, we really are losing a sense of what it is that love really is and the substance of love. And we're not everyone at all, but what I'm saying is when you can peel back the layers, and I'm not just talking about romantic love. I'm talking about love at its very essence of what Christ intended love to be. It is sacrificial. It is laid down life. It is transformative. It is messy. It is inconvenient. And there's nothing about the journey of Christ that did not exemplify any of those things.
Truth.
And so we are also in a place where um, I think there's value in learning and choosing choosing love and being open to love later in life. And I say that because we have so much of the church and even beyond. It's not nothing wrong with it, but what I'm saying is there is value in meeting and finding someone later in life and choosing that, because I had no idea all of who I would be, what I was to become, the character that I had, and what I even truly deserved when I was 25 years old. And I'm not saying that there can't be successful marriages at that stage, but what I'm saying is there is an enriching experience that happens when you come into this understanding of who you are and definitely your relationship with the Lord in the process. Two people come to the table whole,
Yep.
as opposed to two people coming to the table wounded and really having no clue about life. It can work, but I'm just saying we don't give enough value to folks like ourselves that will meet someone in their 50s and meet someone later in their life and have this capacity that they did not have earlier in their life. And so I really thank you. I honor you. Um, I look forward to our next conversation. Can you just share with people where they can learn until our next conversation? Can you share with people where they can learn more about the work you do, become even more educated about it and about you, and be able to contact you in the meantime?
Certainly. And Deborah, I'd like to say that I am not the right answer for somebody who doesn't live around me. There are board certified patient advocates all over the United States, and all you have to do is go onto Google and type in board certified patient advocate, and there's
Yes.
sites that come up that you can look people up. My website for my company is caregiversupportandresources.com.
Okay.
And if you need help looking or finding someone in your area, please reach out to me. I'll be glad to set you on that path.
That's incredible. And yes, I mean, your area might be more, Florida and the surrounding area. But it's really important too that people know what you do, what makes it different, so that even as they may come to you and you direct them to the right place, that people even know in the search that they're looking for something or someone that has the same kind of certification ability, even though they may be different than Maureen, that the services and the things that they do fall under the similar category of what you do. And that's so important. So,
And one thing I would encourage people to do is look for somebody who has the heart of a teacher.
that's good.
Not, if they're not willing to take the time to work with you, to learn about you and let you teach them about yourself, and then they teach you about what they can do next.
Yeah.
It's the right word to say, next.
Yes, yes, so important. Well, you guys, I'm excited because of my new friendship with Maureen. But the other part is that I know that Maureen and I, even with my company HC3D, we will be doing. I think that I can see us doing so much work together in the future. But I just, I'm just sending you off with God's blessings until we talk next week sometime.
Right back at you.
And in the meantime, everyone just, just please, I'm so excited for you to listen to the conversation, but to know about Maureen, to know more about Brian, to be changed by it, to be inspired by it, to be encouraged by it in such a way that it'll put you out there into the world thinking and seeing things differently during this time where there's so much uncertainty and so much being recalibrated in our lives. And so for that reason, I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much, Ms. Maureen.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm so grateful to have you in my life.
Thank you.